Okay, I just wanted to briefly talk about what I've done so far. This is no longer the mock-up, this is the real thing. So this is solid 1-inch square tubing, this is 1/4 inch thick tubing. It's still tack welded together technically, it's not fully welded, but they're pretty substantial welds that I have no plans on breaking. So what I designed here, this is for altitude adjustment. So there's going to be the main RA shaft comes up this way, declination shaft hangs down this way, and this has to be pointed up at Polaris, the North Star, and that's how all the tracking works. So I have to be able to adjust that. You can make them in a fixed position. However, I want to be able to travel with this if at all possible, ever. And so as soon as I were to leave where I live at and travel just a few miles, this is going to have to be adjusted. So I didn't want to lock myself into only being able to use it here. I wanted to be able to use it to almost anywhere, and this will currently adjust north enough to cover all of the continental United States. So I think I'm good on that. It'll even go about halfway up into Canada, right at the southern border of Alaska as far as this will adjust. So I think I'm okay. The way this was designed is that all of this is always in constant tension, never compression. So everything is being pulled, not pushed. The majority of the weight is going to be on this end, being pulled down this way. And there's 2 vertical rods that I'll show you back here in a minute that these turnbuckles are connected to. And when it gets to about this position, which is about halfway through the travel, which is roughly where it's going to be angled for where I live at, these turnbuckles are almost perfectly parallel. So they're nice and strong. They're being pulled directly back. There's not really a lot of downward pressure or upwards pressure on this. It's straight back. And because of that, the clamp for the screw is on the outside with the thrust washer back here, so that the screw is being pulled back and not compressed. If it's compressed, it could buckle and bend. If it's being pulled, it's nice and strong. So there is a little bit of flex in all of this and a little bit of wiggle, but I don't see that being an issue, because once this is loaded, this isn't going to be moving back and forth like this. It's going to be constant. It's not going to change. And because this is always the heavy side, it will always be pulled down. So I don't think that flex is going to ever be an issue. There's going to be a 1/2-inch thick steel plate here and another one here, or sorry, 1/2-inch aluminum plate here and here. And then on the bracket that goes here, there's going to be a 90-degree, and then 2 lock screws will come in on the side, so that once I get this adjusted to where I need it, I can lock it in, and then these 1/2-inch thick aluminum plates will be taking the weight of this. And there's going to be some support added right here also, and another screw going through here. So there'll be a minimum 3 bolts on each side holding that in. And then I'll probably see if I can get some kind of a support going across to link the 2 sides together as well. That's not guaranteed. I'll have to see how other things play out. But it's where I'm at so far. So far I'm very happy with it. This moves very, very easily. There's not doesn't take a lot of pressure at all. I had the full weight of everything on here earlier, and I couldn't turn this by hand anymore, but just with a little pair of wrenches on the end, I could turn it pretty easily. It was not an issue. The only problem I did find is that these particular clamps are not going to work. They don't grab hard enough, and the lead screw started slipping through. And so thankfully I caught that before it pulled all the way through. But I am going to have to come up with another solution. These little clamps are from Ace Hardware, and they're not good enough. They don't clamp hard enough. The other thing I still need to figure out is I need a way of attaching a wrench on both sides here for adjusting this. And I need both sides, because I think if this is fairly flat, the gear is going to come down right here, and I'm not going to be able to get to this side, so I'm going to have to adjust on the other side. And once it's angled up enough, it'll come back and it's going to cover the back side. I'll have to adjust from this side. So I need to be able to flip the wrench from either side. So I still need to figure out that. That's not a huge deal. I'm not too worried about that. I'll figure that out in a little bit. But yeah, other than that, this is going to eventually get shaped and cut down a little bit. And then there's going to be 2 screws on each side right here, and then 2 over here. And there's going to be a 1/2 inch thick aluminum plate that's going to bolt to the tripod, and then this will sit on top of it. And then I'll be able to turn this like this. And so that's going to be the, like I said, this has to be aligned with Polaris. So this gets me my up and down, and then this will get me my side to side to adjust. And there's going to be 2 knobs in the back that I'll turn either way to move this whole thing. So yeah, other than that, I think progress is going to start to slow down again. I'm at a point where now I need to start figuring out some other problems. So I prototyped this up for a while, messed around a lot with it, and got to a point where I was happy with it. So I built this, and now this is final. So now I got to keep going with it. The next part is probably going to be bolting. Still going to be using the wood. I'm not going to cut my aluminum yet. Stuff's expensive, so I'm going to drill my bolt holes in here, mount the wood so I can start coming up with the bracket that'll come down here. Once I get that figured out, because it's going to, I might have to have 2 brackets, one for the through bolts, and then there's going to be another one at the very end where the gear and motor are going to have to mount to, and there's things are going to get really tight, so I need to get all that figured out. Yeah, that's the next step. So. Okay, one last part. This is the back side, so I've moved the camera around to the other side of it. These are the vertical rods I was talking about, and the turnbuckles are attached to the other side of this right here. So this is the side that's loaded down, so it's trying to pivot this way. So it's trying to pull this. And these have a lot of weld area. They're going to be welded completely on the underside here, and then all up against these. This is solid 1-inch thick steel. It's going to be welded all up against there. So there's 2 of them. These are 5/16 grade 8 bolts. I think this is going to be pretty substantial and should work just perfectly fine. And then once again, the other clamp, this one I think is going to be okay, because theoretically this side should never have load on it. Just the other side will. However, if I wind up replacing the other side with something stronger, I'll probably just do both sides. But I want to get this side as low profile as possible, because as I tilt this down, eventually the aluminum plate that's going to be bolted here will hit this. And so the lower profile I can get this and the closer in, then the more adjustment I'll be able to get out of this. It's not really a big deal. I don't really see myself going into Alaska or northern Canada and using this, but you know, putting all this time into it, it'd be nice to get all the adjustment out of it I can. So. Last thing I wanted to touch on was there is some side to side here. And that's because there's a tiny bit of space between these and these. And that's perfectly fine. That's good. That's what I want. So what I plan on doing to take care of that and address it is the 1/2 inch thick aluminum plates that are going here. I'm going to drill and tap a hole for set screws on either side. And I'll screw those in just to where they touch this steel rod. It's a solid 1-inch thick rod going through here, so I'll just touch them, and that'll take out all the play. There'll be no more wiggle, and since there's not going to be any actual pressure on it, it shouldn't affect moving this up and down at all. The other thing, the way this is going to work is I'm actually going to have the machine shop line bore from this one to the other outside one, make them perfectly straight. And then they're going to actually, this is 1 inch right now, they're going to bore this out to 1 1/4 inches, and I've got bronze bearings coming that'll get pressed in, and then this way the shaft that runs through here will be sitting inside of an oiled bronze bearing, so it'll move really smooth. And then on these plates down here, which is attached to this top one, I'm actually going to drill through and tap them for a set screw. And each side will get a set screw, and then that will lock the shaft to here so that the shaft spins in these outside ones and is locked to these inside ones. And that should keep everything nice and still, take out all that play while still letting everything move perfectly smooth.